So, good morning. Today is Sunday, June 3rd, 2018. First, I want to thank everyone who viewed my video. Um, Honestly, I don't really know if this makes any sense, but I really didn't expect to see more than a handful of views. I think I mostly did the videos to kind of purge myself of those feelings and stuff. But anyway, today I want to talk about leaving the organization. Um, a lot of people on the outside feel like witnesses should just wake up and walk out the door. And I get that. I really do. I mean, I wish my family could just wake up and walk out the door. But that's not the reality. As I mentioned in my first video, I'm a nurse, and I deal with a lot of people in different settings. Currently, I work in the jail. And one of the things I see a lot are victims of domestic abuse, like long-term domestic abuse. And you really don't understand why they don't just get up and walk away. Why do they stay with these people who are physically, mentally, emotionally, and sexually abusing them? Why? And it's because of a mindset that has been kind of ingrained in them. They really don't feel like they have anywhere else to go. They don't know what to do without that other person in their dynamic. Now, what does this have to do with Jehovah's Witnesses? Jehovah's Witnesses are a very unique religion. If you're a Baptist or a Methodist or even a Pentecostal, you can have friends with people of other religions. There's no issue with that. With witnesses, it's different. Witnesses are taught to cut off everyone who's not a witness, even in their own families. The only time that they are really allowed to associate with people who aren't witnesses is if they're preaching to them. In fact, I remember growing up, and I would talk about people in school, and my parents would constantly correct me. No, they're not your friends, they're your associates. So it's kind of ingrained in you. I haven't seen my aunts and uncles from Puerto Rico like in my whole life. I don't know the majority of my family, and that's by design. So let's look at this from the perspective of of an abusive relationship. First, you start to study with Jehovah's Witnesses, and they're the nicest people in the world, and truly they are. And they go out of their way to help you, and they bend over backwards, and it looks like they're just really, really trying to teach you Bible truths. And they start with this book called What Does the Bible Really Teach? And the book is an extremely well-designed book. It takes on a lot of things that they feel are misconstrued from the Bible, and it gives them their spiritual response to it and their scriptural response to it, and it's very convincing. So the book is designed not to get into really the dogma of Jehovah's Witnesses, but really to get into just their scriptural differences. And in this way they gain your trust, because everything you see is coming from the Bible. During the course of the study, they're going to encourage you to get rid of your Bible and go with theirs. And the reason they're going to do that, so they say, is so that you have a more accurate Bible. The New World Translation has been touted by the society as the most accurate translation on the planet. Now, once they gain your trust and they've got you reading out of their Bible, you're going to progress to the point of baptism. But before you get there, they want you to cut off all ties with former religion. Now, here's the way it works in the real world. I don't want to be part of this church anymore, so I stopped going. But the witnesses aren't satisfied with that. They want you to send an actual letter disassociating yourself from any other religions. Now, truly this is a symbolic act, because the churches really don't care. That's just a fact. But it cements in your mind the idea that you can never go back. you cross that line, you burn that bridge. And that's important psychologically. Next, they want you to cut off any friends who don't support your devotion to this religion. So the idea is here again that those people are trying to hold you back spiritually. They don't want you to progress spiritually. And the arguments that are used are things like, why wouldn't your friends want you to live a godly life? Why wouldn't your friends want you to not overdrink or not use drugs or not do things that are harmful? And you start reasoning, well, yeah, why wouldn't they? That doesn't even make sense. The reality is that your friends on the outside are seeing something happening to you. They're seeing you're being indoctrinated. Now, the witnesses are very well aware that your friends see that. So they throw up a barrier. They're like, your friends will see that you're changing for the better, that you are coming more in line with godly principles. This will scare them. This will make them want to rebel against you. So right again, they're setting this whole thing right off the bat. They know this is coming, so they warn you, but they do it in kind of a really, nasty way. The idea that your friends that you've had your whole life are now all of a sudden your enemies, trying to, take you away from God's graces. And that's really unfortunate. The exception, of course, is if any of your friends will sit down and listen to you and study with you, then yay, you've won another one over for Jehovah. So little by little, you see yourself distancing yourself from your friends. Okay? And then comes family. How do they get you to separate yourself from family? Well, here's the interesting thing. Most witnesses will not believe that they separated themselves from their families. It's actually an ingenious device in which it's set up to make it seem like your families are abandoning you because you became one of Jehovah's Witnesses. Now, this is actually not the case in the majority of incidents, but the majority of witnesses will 100% believe that it is. Well, how do they do this? Well, when do families mostly get together? Well, they mostly get together during Christmas and Easter, or whatever your particular beliefs are. I don't know what, Muslims or Jews or whatever. But anyway, the idea is that that's when families get together. It's traditionally a time of coming together. Plus, people usually all have the time off from work. So, your family invites you over. Well, you can't go. Well, why can't you go? Because you can't associate in a group that's celebrating a pagan holiday. Okay, fine. Well, we're going to get together for the 4th of July. A big, huge cookout. Everybody's coming, the whole family reunion. This is what we're going to do. Come on over. No, I can't do that. Why? Well, the political system is part of, Satan's construct, and I am neutral to all political things. I cannot get involved in anything that has a political overtone. It's a barbecue. Well, no, that's not. It might be a barbecue to you, but to Jehovah God, it's a violation of our neutrality and our dedication to Jehovah's kingdom above man's kingdom. Okay. Hey, Susie's getting married. Come on over. We want to invite you. Well, I can't do that. Why not? Well, it's in a church, and the church is part of Christendom, and I can't get involved in anything like that. Well, then why don't you just come over to the reception? Well, I can't do that. Why not? Well, because there's going to be drinking and there's going to be all kinds of activities going on that violate, my Christian principles, and there might be people who were former witnesses there, and that would be, against the Bible's, edicts to not even have a meal with them. So I really can't do that. Okay. Uncle Joe died. We're going to have the funeral. Come on over. Please come. Oh, I can't do that. It's in a church that's part of Babylon the Great. I can't do that. So you see this pattern where you keep rejecting the family, rejecting the family, rejecting the family, rejecting the family. Guess what happens? They stop inviting you. They stop calling you. They stop sending cards. And they're mad at you. They're mad that you didn't go to Uncle Joe's funeral. They're mad that you didn't go to Susie's wedding. They're mad that any time they have some kind of thing where the family can come together, you reject them. Not only do you reject them, but you make them feel that everything they're doing is anti-God. So they just stop. And now you're that beautiful victim, that perfect victim, just another casualty in Jehovah's war, where your evil, unbelieving family has rejected you and has cast you out. No, they didn't. You walked away from them. But in the minds of witnesses, they're taught that they have been abandoned by these ungodly people because they chose to serve Jehovah. Now, when you're taught that, it immediately sets up your relatives and your family, your own flesh and blood, as your enemies. These people don't hate you. These people love you. That's why they're angry. They want you to be part of the family's life. But you're being taught that they're the enemy. Okay, so now you've cut off all your friends. And you've cut off all your family. Now what? You won't go to your high school reunion because, that's association with worldly people. Oh, that's right. Don't forget. You can't associate with people who are not witnesses. You cannot be friends with them. Why? Because they believe that you will be influenced, that you will be sullied by contact with them. Even young children are taught that they should have no contact with worldly people. So I have no friends out in the world. I can't make new friends in the world. I have no family. I've lost all my old contacts. I've lost all my old friends. Now what? Next, we're going to examine your job. Does your job somehow support Christendom? In other words, is there any connection of the business you work for that might have dealings with a church that is not Jehovah's Witnesses? Is your work part of Satan's war machine? Again, in other words, does any part of the company you work for in any way support the manufacturing, delivering, whatever, to anything military related? Or are you part of Satan's political system of things? In other words, does your company in any way, shape, or form have any government contracts? Now let's put all this together. If you work for any one of these things, guess what? You are strongly encouraged to find new work. Wow. You don't have to believe me on any of this. This is all well documented. I grew up with this, so I'm very well aware of it. But many of you have not, so please do the research. It's not that hard to find. So now I'm changing my job. I've got no friends. I've got no family. I've completely cut off everyone I've ever known, and I've changed my job. Now what? Now I'm taught to rely completely on Jehovah's people. And the idea is that this is a worldwide brotherhood. You can go anywhere in the world and you will have brothers right there waiting for you. And do you want to know something? It's true. Yes. Jehovah's Witnesses are encouraged very strongly to open their doors to fellow witnesses, whether they know them or not. This provides a sense of brotherhood. So I can leave here in Michigan. I could go to Florida. My car can break down, and I can call the local Kingdom Hall and say, "Hey, brother, I'm brother so-and-so from such and such congregation. My car broke down. Are there any of the friends around that might give us a helping hand?" And sure enough, somebody will show up and help out. Now, you're going to say, "Wow, that sounds like a really good thing. What's the criticism of that?" And it's not. Don't get me wrong. But here's the thing. It works to develop a dependency on only those people in the organization. That's it. They want to develop a situation where the only people you can rely on, the only people you can trust, The only people that are on your side are fellow witnesses. Okay. Over time, you are taught that the entire world hates us. And they'll give examples of bans that the witnesses have been under in various countries, and times that people have been imprisoned for being witnesses and stuff like this. And they even speak a lot about the purple triangles, the witnesses who were in concentration camps in Nazi Germany, things like that. So this reinforces the idea the entire world is out to get us. The whole world is looking to destroy us. That further strengthens the bonds between witnesses themselves. Now, after your baptism, you're going to start learning more and more and more about the dogma side of Jehovah's Witnesses. And what I mean by this is these are things that are not things they can look up a scripture on and say, see, it says it right here. These are things that they're going to try to stretch scriptures and state that this is implied by it. Now, it starts with something very simple, like smoking. So there's nowhere in the Bible that says smoking, is wrong or is against the Bible. However, Paul talks about our bodies being temples devoted to Jehovah God, and how would we present that and stuff. So you can see, okay, well, if my body doesn't really belong to me, it belongs to God, I should present it in such a way. I have to present my body pure, clean, like the scriptures say. So why would I smoke? See, that makes sense. A to B to C. Okay. Now, they start with things like that make sense, and then they start stretching it little by little by little until it gets to the point where anything the society states is to be unquestionable, is to be right from Jehovah God. Now, the society in the past several times has stated that they are not a prophet, yet they behave as one. They say that they are God's only channel here on earth. So in other words, the scriptures say something, but then the society says something. And if you hear from the society, that's the exact same thing as if it were written in scripture, even though it's not. I liked to say, jokingly, when I was a witness, that we have our own Trinity: Jehovah God, Jesus Christ, and the faithful and discreet slave. It's not really a joke. They really do push this idea that anything they say is infallible. Now, how can an organization that has made mistake after mistake after mistake and corrected themselves and changed things be infallible? Well, indeed, what they do is they don't ever really admit that they were wrong. What they say is that they need a clarification, or that new light came onto a subject, and so it has been re-clarified for us. But anyway, I digress. The point is that you're developing a more and more and more intense dependency on the organization and on the brothers and sisters in it. Now, you read your Bible. Certain things don't make sense. Certain things seem to contradict what the society is teaching, and you have questions. So, are you allowed to bring up these questions? A lot of people on the outside say, oh God, no, witnesses are never allowed to bring up questions. And that's not true. But here's the way it works. You're allowed to bring up any question you want, as long as the answer you are given by an elder is taken 100% on face value, accepted, and you change your doubt to 100% positive acceptance of the teaching. You see how that works? So let's say you have a problem with the 144,000 being a literal number. Literally, because that entire chapter of Revelation is symbolic, and they acknowledge it's symbolic, except for the one part of one verse that uses the number 144,000. Even the way it's derived from the 12 tribes and so forth, even that's symbolic. It's just the actual number that is supposed to be real. So let's say you have a question about that, and you're like, I just don't get this. This 144,000 thing being literal, it doesn't make sense. I mean, by now, that number should have been fulfilled long before the modern century. I mean, what's going on here? And an elder will be more than willing to sit you down, take you through some of the older publications that quasi-explain it, and they'll present it to you and say, now, do you see why it is a literal number? And your response had better be, yes. I get it now. That makes sense. Thank you, brother so-and-so. And you better present it that way from then on. The only other option that you have is to say, I still don't get it, but I'm going to pray for Jehovah to change my thinking on it, and I will wait on Jehovah. That's also an acceptable response for a short period of time. That buys you a little time. No other response is acceptable. If you keep questioning something that doesn't make sense, now you've gone into something called apostasy. Now, what is apostasy? The actual definition of apostasy is to stand against God. Now, how would questioning something you don't understand and want clarification on being in opposition to Jehovah God? Well, it's not. Except that, remember, the society has lined themselves up as God's spokesperson. So therefore, if you're questioning anything that the society has put out, you are standing against God. Now, imagine if you thought something at one point in time and you were considered an apostate, and then that thinking changed or was clarified, and it was more in line with what you were thinking. Now what? Well, then you were being tested by Jehovah, and you should have stayed loyal no matter what. They pretty much have all the angles fixed. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, the threat of being an apostate is that you'll be kicked out of the organization. You'll be disfellowshipped. So you're kicked out of the church. So what? Well, what you don't understand is, remember how we built all those relationships up? Remember how we cut off everyone from our outside? Well, while all that was going on, the society has spent tons of time and articles, videos, dramas, everything to express to you how untrustworthy and evil the world has become. How horrible everyone is out there. How there's no loyalty, there's no friendship. There's nothing but backstabbing, horrid conditions awaiting you. They paint a hellfire so beautiful that it would rival Dante. Now, that scares you to death. Being disfellowshipped means a few things. One, you're going to be cast out into that hell where there's no one there to support you, that everyone is just a horrible, marauding scavenger just looking to devour you. You have no friends. You have no family. You have no contact. You've lost all of these friends that you made, because as soon as that announcement is made, the very split second that brother gets up on that stage and says, so-and-so is no longer one of Jehovah's Witnesses, every single person turns their back on you. Everyone. I don't care if it's your parents. I don't care if it's your spouse. I don't care if it's your child. I don't care if it's your best friend for the last 30 years. That split second after that announcement is made, you are dead to all of them. They're even told not to pray for your return. So you're cast out, completely cast out. And you have nothing on the outside. You have nowhere to go. You have no one to turn to. You have no social constructs. You have no friends. You have no relatives. You have no nothing. Do you have any idea how terrifying that is? It is the most frightening thing you'll go through. You are truly, utterly alone. Now let that sink in for a little bit. Every witness is threatened with that. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. For many It's even more frightening than not making it into paradise. It means a loss of everything. So, for most witnesses, it is more endurable to put up with your doubts, your fears, your falsehoods that you know are wrong, than to be cast out. In fact, it has become popular to say, I will just wait on Jehovah to correct that. In other words, I know this is wrong. I know it's absolutely wrong. But I have to have belief that this is Jehovah's organization, that he is in control, and that he will fix it. But I'm not going to step out. I'm not going to stand up for it because I'm not going to pay the price. I'll just wait for God to correct it. God hasn't corrected it in all this time. God's not going to correct it. So you have this tremendous, tremendous fear. This is why witnesses don't walk away. This is also why, and I need to put this out there because, oh my God, please. The little protests at the conventions, the little signs, the little bullhorns, they will never work. I'm sorry. I hate to break it to you. I hate to disappoint it to you. But witnesses are prepared for that long before the convention comes. It becomes in the Kingdom Ministries that they're going to face those people. And you have been demonized and everything long before you get there. The whole read the Bible, not the Watchtower. We're taught to hear that. We're taught to hear that, oh, they're going to say the Watchtowers are cold. Oh, they're going to say obey God, not the Watchtower. And we're taught the mental response to it. Those brothers that are standing in a line blocking you from the witnesses, that's complete propaganda. You know it, I know it, but guess what? The witnesses are taught that they are there for their protection because you're going to lurch after them. You're going to attack them. They actually walk by those brothers and thank them. Those signs, those protests, they are a waste of time. Mostly because thanks to those signs, thanks to those bullhorns, thanks to those protests, you validate every single fear that the society is putting into witnesses about apostates. Every single one of them. The society wants you there more than you want to be there. You actually get disappointed when apostates are not standing around the convention, when there are not signs, when there are not bullhorns, because that's proof that the wicked slave class is persecuting Jehovah's people. I mean, keep doing it if you want, but all you're doing is strengthening their position. Leaving this organization is the scariest thing that anybody could ever endure. Even when an abused spouse leaves their spouse, they have family to go to, they have agencies, they have organizations that can help them. There's nothing for a witness when they leave their abusive relationship. It is scary. And it is hard. So the purpose of this video that I'm making today is to please don't trivialize those who are staying behind or who are having a really hard time when they leave. Sometimes I get the feeling like people think you're going to walk out of the organization and have this epiphany and everything's going to be wonderful, and it really doesn't work that way. But instead, please reach out to these people. Please help them. Please comfort them and encourage them, and don't bash them. Don't make things harder for them. Just really try to be there to support them and understand the turmoil that they're in. It's beyond hard. In my next video, I'm going to discuss some things that those of us who have just left can do to make the transition a little bit easier, to make it so that it's not such a gut-wrenching, horrific, terrifying experience. And I hope that people will tune into it. Thank you for listening.